When you think of catastrophes, you may not think of civil disorder, but a lot of insurance companies do. And they track damages from protests just like they would for hurricanes, wildfires, and tornadoes. So we wanted to know, how does what we've seen in the last week in cities from coast to coast, where thousands of businesses have been decimated during protests in response to the death of George Floyd, how does all of that damage compare to the losses in other historically significant protests? To be clear, these losses in no way compare to the loss of George Floyd's life or the decades of racial inequality. We got help on this from the Property Claims Service, which does a lot of analysis for insurance companies. They set the bar for declaring a catastrophe at $25 million in insured losses. Minnesota alone hit that bar last week, and that doesn't include all the other cities. Insurance companies are still calculating the losses. Prior to this week, the LA riots in 1992 had been the costliest case of civil unrest. The Insurance Information Institute helped us adjust those losses for inflation. In today's dollars, those riots protesting the acquittal of officers who brutally beat Rodney King resulted in about $1.4 billion in losses. The Newark riots back in 1967, when white officers beat a black cab driver, was the 7th costliest case of civil unrest in today's dollars, $115 million in losses. And more recently, the Baltimore protests in response to the death of Freddie Gray in police custody fell just shy of reaching a catastrophe designation. The Insurance Information Institute says businesses can file claims for direct physical damage to their stores, stolen property, and loss of income. Individuals who experience vehicle or home damages can also file a claim. And Loretta Waters, who's with the Insurance Information Institute, says insurance companies have the money to pay.
You worry about the businesses and think, gosh, are they going to be able to recoup this?
You know, the insurance industry is in the business to pay claims. That's what we do. If it's part of the contract, you have insurance, you will have coverage for the riots.
The Property Claims Service says typically civil disorder is considered relatively low risk in the insurance world. Since 1965, they've only designated 12 riots a catastrophe.
Get back!
But the George Floyd protests are unique in scope. It's not one city. It's more than 20 states. That is a large chunk of the country reporting losses, and these protests have now gone international. And that's why the insurance industry is predicting these protests will become the costliest case of civil unrest in U.S. history. Danielle Lee, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.